Hello everyone, please welcome to this Lactalis Ingredients webinar. In this presentation, we will see how to tap into texture to diversify your oral nutritional supplement offer. I'm Elodie Macariou, Senior Product Manager at Lactalis Ingredients.
And I'm Michael Ledelmat, Application Manager in Lactalis Ingredients.
Before we get started, I have some housekeeping points to go over. If you have any questions for us, please type them into the Q&A box on the webinar screen and hit the submit button. If you experience any technical difficulties while watching the webinar, please refresh your browser as this clears up most problems. If this doesn't help, just type your issue into the Q&A box and a member of the technical team will help you. Before getting to the heart of the matter, just a quick word about Lactalis Ingredients. We are a global producer of whey and milk ingredients. Our headquarters is located in the west of France. With our 1,500 employees and our 18 production sites, we are able to be active in more than 100 countries. The agenda of today's presentation will be the following. First, we will talk about the clinical nutrition market, a growing market but facing challenges. Then we will present you how we can help you overcome these challenges thanks to our ingredients and their use in different matrices. So the clinical nutrition market is growing but facing different challenges. We estimate the clinical nutrition market to be over $20 billion, and it is expected to reach $30 billion in the next few years. There are different drivers, the main one being the rising geriatric population. According to the United Nations, by 2050, 1 in 6 people in the world will be over age 65. Our world is living longer, and according to the World Health Organization, the number of people at risk of becoming frail is growing. There are also more diagnosed metabolic disorders, and the incidence of chronic diseases is growing. As an example, 1 in 11 adults has diabetes. It will be 1 in 10 by 2040. Through vital nutrition, oral nutritional supplements play a role in mitigating the risk of frailty.
Thank you, Elodie, for your introduction. Let me say first that it's a pleasure for me today to present you what you can do with our proteins pronative in the field of senior nutrition. And as an introduction to my presentation, I will start with a quick reminder about the nutritional issues associated to aging. Looking at this diagram on the slide here, you can see that there is a progressive loss of muscle mass during aging. It starts, in fact, around 40 years old, but it gets really a health issue after 65 to 70 years old. What happens is that the anabolism, that is to say the mechanism by which muscles get built up from the ingested protein, so anabolisms gets less effective with aging. First reason for that is that the protein intake required for optimal anabolism significantly increased due to aging. And the second reason is that the leucine intake required for optimal anabolism is also increased. These physiological changes have an impact on the food needs of seniors, in particular with regard to protein needs. A higher protein intake is required for seniors compared to young adults. And the second consequence is that it's also important to bring a high quality protein from a nutritional point of view. By high quality, we mean protein with high digestibility, good amino acid profile, so well balanced in essential amino acid, and in particular, a high content in leucine, which is essential for the anabolism. I suggest we look now at how dairy products can contribute to cover these protein needs for seniors. As an example of dairy products, I propose to consider different milk beverages. So here you can see on the slide that I've considered 3 types of milk beverages. Simple UHT milk with protein content between 3 and 4 grams per 100 ml. Then protein-enriched milk with protein content between 5 and 7.5 grams of protein per 100 ml. And really high protein beverages with protein content between 10 and 14 grams of protein per 100 ml. So we'll consider two parameters in order to see how these products can be interesting for senior nutrition. First, the total protein intake, and secondly, the leucine intake. It's in fact necessary to provide about 30 grams of protein per meal for seniors in order to promote efficiently the anabolism. And it's necessary as well to provide between 2.2 and 2.8 grams of leucine in order to initiate the anabolism. So you can read the figures for the three types of products. And the point that I wanted to come to is that you see immediately that the ideal protein supplement would be a formula with protein content over 10 grams per 100 ml. And as a technologist, we all know that these formulas with top high protein content are challenging in terms of manufacturing. You can face destabilization during manufacturing, and challenging as well during shelf life. It's not easy to keep such a recipe stable over shelf life.
So as we can see with Michael's explanation, oral nutritional supplements are at the heart of the nutritional strategy. They are controlled foods for special medical purposes designed to meet specific nutritional needs like metabolic disorders or malnutrition. We estimate that they represent almost 60% of the clinical nutrition market. And in the case of malnutrition, the increased need for protein can be addressed by different formats: beverages, pudding, yogurts, soups, biscuits, powders, and so on. However, the compliance to oral nutritional supplements can be improved. Indeed, the overall compliance rate is 78%, but can drop to 37%. There are different obstacles to compliance, and one of them is the size of the ONS. As shown in the graph on the right part of the slide, energy density is positively associated with compliance to ONS, as the volume to be consumed is smaller and therefore easier to finish. One of the other reasons for not taking ONS is the lassitude caused by the lack of variety and also the organoleptic properties of the products. To sum up, taste, texture, and format size are key drivers to compliance. ONS must be good and compact. They must be easy and convenient to ingest. But as we previously see, most of them must meet increased protein needs, and protein enrichment can have consequences on the finished product. It can have an impact on texture. Protein enrichment can provide too much viscosity to beverages or pudding. Protein enrichment can lead to the appearance of off-taste, like metal or bitterness. And the stability over time, as Michael mentioned previously, can be reduced with the destabilization of the product structure. Therefore, shelf life can be reduced due to a thickening of the product over time, as well as a deposit of insoluble protein. So now let's see in Lactalis Ingredients, what ingredients could we offer for oral nutritional supplements. Lactalis Ingredients offers ProNative, a range of native proteins dedicated to highly nutritional products. This range is composed of native micellar casein and native whey protein. ProNative native micellar casein is a slow protein, ideal to reduce protein catabolism during fasting period. On the other side, ProNative native whey protein is a fast protein to stimulate muscular synthesis and improve muscle function. They have a high content of essential amino acids and branched-chain amino acids. They have a clean taste suitable for high protein enrichment. Depending on the content of protein, you can vary and improve the texture of your ONS in several matrices. These proteins are natural and pure. They are extracted directly from milk without added ingredients or chemicals. Minimally processed through our cold filtration method, the native form of the protein is preserved. The full nutritional quality as well. We were pioneers in perfecting a technique that allows the gentle extraction of a new whey protein, ProNative, and we continue to explore the field of native proteins with ProNative native micellar casein.
So, as Elodie explained, Lactalis Ingredients offers two types of milk protein under the range Pro-Native. And on this first slide, we will review first the nutritional parameters of both types of proteins. So on the left-hand side, you have the micellar casein, Pro-Native micellar casein, and on the right-hand side, you have the native whey protein. As you can see, both types of protein are very rich in essential amino acids. Both types are also rich in leucine, and native whey protein is even top high in leucine with 13.1 gram per 100 grams of protein. One specific interest to the micellar casein is that it's a product which is very rich in calcium, with a calcium content of 2.6 gram per 100 ml. The two proteins, if we talk about isolate, are very low in lactose content, with less than 3 grams of lactose per 100 gram, which means that if you formulate a beverage, for instance, with 10% protein, this product will hold less than 0.2 grams of lactose, which complies with a claim low lactose. Then one last point, as Elodie mentioned before, the micellar casein can be considered as a slow protein. The digestion is slow, so this protein will be very convenient, ideal for before fasting period. On the other side, the native whey protein can be considered as a fast protein, so quickly digested. So it is ideal then for recovery after efforts. Something important as well when we talk about proteins is to look at their functional properties. And here on this slide, I have summed up the main functional properties of the both type of proteins. You see first the heat stability properties of both type of proteins. And on the left-hand side, you see that the native micellar casein is a very heat-stable protein. The result that I show here is the heat stability time of a solution reconstituted at 10%. This solution can withstand a heat treatment at 140 degrees for over 16 minutes before you start seeing the first signs of coagulation. So that's really, really a long heat stability time. On the other hand, the native whey protein are not heat stable, they are heat sensitive. And the same type of solution, so 10%, would not withstand a heat treatment at 140 degrees for a long time. It will coagulate almost immediately. It will not withstand a heat treatment of 1 minute before you start seeing the first signs of coagulation. The second functional property that we consider today is the texture. And on the left-hand side, what I want to show here is that with the micellar casein, you can make products with very low viscosity. As benchmarks, we have 3 products here, so UHT milk, evaporated milk, and drinking yogurts. You see that they have a viscosity ranging between 12 and 100 centipoise, and a beverage with 10% of micellar casein would have a viscosity around 30 centipoise, which is then in a range of low viscosity. On the other side, a product made with native whey protein, as soon as you apply a heat treatment, you will get a viscous or even a gel set texture. So we'll come back now to the heart of the presentation today, which is tapping into texture to diversify your ONS offer. In fact, with the range Pro-Native, you have in your hands a very interesting toolbox for creative recipes of protein supplements. You can make a large varieties of texture. You can make liquid beverages, you can make puddings, or you can make creams. And something very interesting as well is that you can make very simple recipes. No need to use additives, no need to use any texture agents. And in fact, you can simply formulate clean label recipes. So I will show you now 4 product concepts that we have been developing with our proteins. And I will start with the first one, which is a beverage, a high protein, high calorie, ready to drink beverage produced with UHT technology. As you can see here, you have the full recipe of the product. So it's a basis for ONS. We didn't add any minerals here, but you can add minerals as you want. We took 14.2% of micellar casein, which makes 13 grams per 100 ml in the finished product. So a serving of 250 ml would bring 32 grams of protein. Such a product is typically ideal as an ONS, high protein oral nutritional supplement. Then what is the challenge with such a recipe? All the people who have tried to produce this type of recipe know that it's complicated to keep a low viscosity and a stable viscosity over shelf life. And I present you on this slide the result of the viscosity. As you see, the viscosity at the beginning was low, around 60 to 70 centipoise. And we managed to keep it low and stable over 1 year, which is a proof that our micellar casein is a top protein ingredient to make high protein beverages with low viscosity. I move now to the second example of product concept that we have been developing. It is still a UHT beverage, high protein beverage, but this time it's formulated differently. We have combined the micellar casein and the native whey together. And this product is really an innovation. You don't find such a composition on the market because it holds 40% of whey protein. And the interest with this high level of whey protein is that you bring a lot of leucine in the product. So how could such a product be used in a global strategy for senior nutrition? We think it would be a very interesting, what we call protein booster. By protein booster, we mean a product which could be given, for instance, at the end of the meal, and which will guarantee that you have, with the protein present in the meal, plus the protein with the brought by the booster, you have enough protein for the anabolism, and you have enough leucine as well. I move now to the third example of product that you can do with our protein. It's not a beverage anymore. This time it's pudding, but a pudding with a creamy texture. And this is also, we think, an interesting innovation because most of the pudding that you find on the markets are gel set. They are quite strong in texture. So this would be a new offer in the way that the texture is kept creamy. And how do we manage to get this result? So as you see in the recipe, we take 14% of micellar casein as the single protein source. And we don't bring any texturizer. The texture is simply made by the combination of micellar casein and a native rice starch to give this creamy texture. So you see the composition. We have 12% of protein in the product and 1.1 gram of leucine. One serving here would bring 21 grams of protein. Still the same question, how to use this product for senior nutrition. It could be, for instance, given in the late afternoon snack to prevent night fasting because of the interest of the micellar casein as a slow protein. The fourth and last example for today will be a second type of pudding, but this time with a gel set texture, what I call flan-like texture. And how do we get it? Here you see that we combine again micellar casein and native whey, so 7.7% of micellar casein combined with 6.1% of native whey. And the two together will form a gel without any need to add additives, gelling agents. So you see that we keep roughly the same type of composition with still 12% of protein in the product. We're a bit higher in leucine. That's the benefits that we get with the addition of the native whey in the recipe. And so it is also an innovative product because in most of the pudding that you find in the markets, you will have texture agents. And we show with this example that it's not necessary to use texture agents to get the gel set texture. Now, how could such a product be used for senior nutrition? We could suggest it as a lunch dessert, for instance, to promote muscle synthesis. Now you have the chance to have your say and take a quick poll. The question we'd like to ask you to answer is, which of the concepts presented do you think is the most relevant? So you will find the 4 concepts. The first one being the UHT high protein, high calorie beverage. The second one being the UHT high protein beverage. The third one being the creamy pudding. The fourth one being the pudding with a flan-like texture. We leave you some time to give your answer before we go ahead with the presentation. Right. So if you have time to make your choice, we'll go ahead and we'll see your answer later. So to conclude my presentation today, I have here sum up the different types of product that we have shown. So you see that you can make different types of beverages with our proteins. The first one was a product with 18% protein. The top high protein content was at 32%. But you could imagine as well different type of beverages. You could make protein waters, that mean clear products. This time, if you want to formulate such a product, the native whey protein will be the ideal solution. Then we were seeing today different types of puddings with different texture, both bringing 21 grams of protein. And something that I haven't put on the slide, but you could have also different type of products, such as, for instance, why not thinking about high protein ice cream? That's also possible to make this type of product with our micellar casein.
So thank you, Michael, for the presentation of different applications of our proteins in nutrition. Now, if you would like more information, please visit our website or send an email to the address noted here. We will now take the time to answer some of your questions. So do not hesitate to ask your question if it's not already done in the Q&A box. We may not have time to answer all of them, but we'll be sure to get back to you after the webinar. So we have our first question regarding one of our concepts. So about the HPHC beverage, you have shown a recipe with 13% protein in your presentation. Did you try higher concentrations? And what would be the maximum concentration that you can reach with pronative micellar casein?
Thank you for this question. Yes, indeed, we've tried a higher concentration. In our test, we tested up to 14.5% of protein. And the product was still okay in terms of texture. The viscosity, of course, was a bit higher. We followed the stability of a shelf life, not over 1 year, but at least over 6 months. The product was kept stable. So you asked what would be the maximum, the highest protein content that we could imagine. It's not really easy for me to say because we haven't reached the limit with our test, but I would commit for at least 14.5% since we've proved with our own test that it works at this level.
Thank you, Michael, for these clarifications. So this time we have another question regarding our protein range. Your range pronative includes micellar casein on the one hand and native whey on the other hand. You don't have MPI. Is there a difference between MPI and micellar casein in terms of formulation of high protein beverages?
Thank you again for this question. There is a difference indeed between MPI and micellar casein. First, there is a difference in composition. In the MPI, you keep the natural ratio casein to whey protein in the product. That means 80% casein, 20% whey protein. And this has an impact on the functional properties. The MPI has not heat stability as high as micellar casein. And then the consequence is that it's not possible with MPI to make beverages with a concentration which is as high as what you can do with micellar casein. So I think that with MPI you will be limited around 10% in concentration, whereas you can go up to 14.5% with the micellar casein, as I explained before.
And we have another question for you, Michael. You did not compare your milk proteins with plant proteins. Could you give us some input, please?
Yes, sure. So the first thing we can say is that milk proteins in general have a better digestibility and better amino acid profile compared to plant proteins. So that's something which is well known and well documented. And the recommendation in general for senior nutrition, but for nutrition in general, is that at least 50% of the protein supply should be brought by animal protein in general, not only milk protein, but animal protein. And in the recommendation for senior nutrition, what we can say that milk protein is really recognized as the best protein source due to their very good amino acid profile and high digestibility.
And I think that we have the time for our last question. There is a growing concern about processed proteins and the related reduced bioavailability. What can you say about Pronative regarding that?
So here it's interesting to explain again how we produce the Pronative, and it's in fact included in the name of the brand. Pronative, that's made with simple filtration technique. So there is no chemistry behind. It's simply a physical separation. So which means that the protein are not denatured at all during the preparation. And the ingredient that you buy and that you use for your recipes is really a protein which is in the native structure, just as you find it in milk. So that's a real interest with our Pronative proteins. They are not processed at all. They are in their native structure. So with no impact on the bioavailability.
Well, thank you, Michael, for your answers. That's all the time we have for today. It is the end of our Q&A session. If we were not able to answer your question, we'll aim to follow up with you directly after the webinar. An exit survey will pop up after the webinar, and we would appreciate it if you could take a few moments to give us your feedback on this event. Thank you everyone for listening, and please feel free to contact us to the address on the last slide of our presentation, and we will be happy to come back to you. Once again, thank you and have a nice day.